Picture this. You've spent 30, maybe 40 years building a business from the ground up. It's your baby. You know every bolt, every client, every crack in the warehouse floor. And now you're ready to walk away. You want to retire, but you don't want to sell to some soulless private equity firm that's going to strip it for parts. You want to take care of the people who helped you build it.
Naturally, you want to be the benevolent founder, the hero of the story.
Exactly. So you hear about this thing called an ESOP, an employee stock ownership plan. It sounds perfect, right? You sell the company to the employees, you get your payout, they get ownership, and your legacy remains intact. It's the ultimate win-win, or at least that's what it is, or could be for some.
Right. And that is exactly where the trap snaps shut, because what looks like a gift on the surface is often, structurally speaking, a financial and legal labyrinth that can trap small business owners for years after they thought they'd be sipping margaritas on a beach.
That is a strong opening statement. You're calling the ultimate win-win a trap. So are we saying ESOPs are inherently bad or just misunderstood?
Misunderstood and sometimes oversold. Look, an ESOP can be a beautiful thing for the right company. If you have hundreds of employees, massive cash flow, and a very specific culture, it works. But for the average small to mid-sized business owner, say, someone running a manufacturing plant or a service firm in a place like Canton, it is often the most expensive, complicated, and restrictive way to exit your business.
Okay, let's peel this back. Because the headline benefit everyone talks about is the tax break. I've heard people say you can sell your business to an ESOP and pay zero capital gains tax. That sounds like free money. How is that a bad thing?
It's the classic don't let the tax tail wag the business dog scenario. Yes, under Section 1042 of the IRS Code, if you structure it right, you can defer capital gains. That is huge. But you have to ask yourself, what is the cost of that tax break? First, there's the valuation.
Valuation, meaning what the company is worth.
Exactly. If you sell to a strategic buyer, a competitor, or a private equity group, they are buying your potential. They might pay you a premium. They're paying for synergy. But an ESOP, by law, an ESOP cannot pay more than fair market value.
So you're capped.
You are strictly capped. A trustee is hired to represent the employees, and their entire job is to ensure they don't overpay. So, right off the bat, you might be leaving 20 or 30% of the sale price on the table just to save 20% on taxes. The math doesn't always work out in your favor.
That's a fascinating trade-off. You're trading a potential higher market price for tax efficiency, but you might actually net less money. But let's talk about the gift aspect. I think a lot of owners are willing to take a slightly lower price if it means their employees are taken care of. It feels like a moral victory.
It feels that way, yes. But let's look at the mechanics of that gift. How do the employees pay you? Do your workers have $3 million in cash lying around?
I assume not.
Right. So the company borrows the money to pay you, the company takes on debt to buy your shares. You are essentially loading your business, your legacy, with a heavy backpack of debt right as you walk out the door. The company now has to generate enough profit not just to grow, but to service that loan. If the economy turns, if a major client leaves,
the employees are left holding the bag.
Worse, often the bank won't lend the full amount. So who becomes a lender? You, the seller. You end up holding a seller note. You are now the bank, so you haven't actually exited. You've just changed your title from CEO to creditor. If the business fails under the weight of the debt you placed on it, you don't get paid.
Wow, so the clean break is a myth?
In many small to mid-market ESOPs, yes. It is a very, very long goodbye. You might be tied to the financial performance of that company for another 10 years. Compare that to a third-party sale. You sign the papers, the wire transfer hits your account, you hand over the keys, and you never have to worry about payroll again.
That is a stark contrast. It seems like the emotional appeal of the ESOP blinds people to the operational reality. But let's dig deeper into the regulation side. You mentioned trustees earlier. I imagine the government has a lot to say about these plans.
Oh, the Department of Labor loves ESOPs. And by loves, I mean they watch them like a hawk. An ESOP is a qualified retirement plan, like a 401k. That means you are subject to ERISA laws. You need annual valuations by independent firms, you need lawyers, you need trustees. The administrative cost to set up an ESOP can run upwards of $100,000, and the annual maintenance can be tens of thousands of dollars.
Just to keep the lights on for the program?
Correct. If you're a smaller business, those fees eat directly into your profit margins. It's like buying a Ferrari to drive to the grocery store. It's a great car, but the maintenance is going to kill you if you aren't racing it.
I like that analogy. So if I'm a business owner in Ohio looking at my exit options, why is this narrative so pervasive? Why do I keep hearing that ESOP is the best way?
Because there is an entire industry of service providers, lawyers, valuation firms, administrators who make a lot of money setting these things up. And again, I don't want to paint them as villains. For a company with 200 employees, stable cash flow, and an owner who wants to slowly phase out over a decade, it's a brilliant tool. It aligns incentives. Employees work harder because they own the place. That data is real.
Right? The ownership culture. Productivity goes up.
It can. But for the owner who wants to retire now, who wants to secure their family's financial future guaranteed, it's a gamble. And here's the other thing people forget, the management vacuum.
Explain that.
If you sell to a strategic buyer, they usually bring in their own management team or they have a deep bench. If you sell to your employees, who runs the ship? Your sales manager? Your operations guy? They might be great at their jobs, but are they ready to be CEOs and CFOs?
That's a huge risk. You're betting your payout on the people you hired, hoping they can suddenly pivot to executive leadership.
Precisely. And often, because you're the note holder, you end up staying on the board or staying as CEO just to protect your investment. You become a hostage in your own company. You wanted to travel the world, but instead, you're in board meetings explaining to your former subordinates why they can't give themselves raises yet because they have to pay off the debt.
That sounds incredibly awkward. It changes the dynamic completely. It goes from, I'm giving you this gift, to you owe me money.
It changes the psychology entirely. And let's talk about the employees for a second. We say it's a gift to them, but is it? We are concentrating their financial risk. If I work for a company, my salary depends on that company. If my retirement savings are also 100% tied up in that same company's stock via an ESOP, if the company goes under, I lose my job and my retirement.
That is a profound point. Diversification is rule number one of investing. An ESOP forces employees to break that rule.
It puts all their eggs in one basket, a basket they didn't choose, really. So when we ask, is an ESOP best for your business? The answer is usually, is your business robust enough to handle the debt, the fees, and the risk? Or are you just trying to avoid the emotional difficulty of selling to a stranger?
That's the crux of it, isn't it? It's emotional. Selling a business is like selling a family pet. You want to believe it's going to a good home.
And that is where a good broker or advisor comes in. Because the reality is, you can sell to a third party and still protect your employees. You can write stipulations into the contract, you can stay on for a transition period, you can secure retention bonuses for your key staff. You don't have to hand over the deed to the staff to treat them well. You can take the cash from a strategic buyer and give your employees a massive farewell bonus. That's a real gift. Cash is a gift. Debt is not always a gift.
Cash is a gift. Debt is not. That should be on a billboard. So if we are looking at the landscape today, market shifts, interest rates, does that make ESOPs harder?
Absolutely. Interest rates are the killer. Remember, the company has to borrow money to buy you out. When rates were near zero, leveraged buyouts like ESOPs were easier. Now, the cost of capital is higher. That puts even more pressure on the company's cash flow. The margin for error is razor thin.
So the hurdle has gotten higher.
Much higher. If you're looking at an exit today, you have to look at the open market. There is a lot of dry powder. Cash sitting with private equity and strategic buyers looking for good businesses. They are willing to pay cash. Real, liquid cash.
And that liquidity is freedom.
Freedom is what you worked for. You didn't build a business for 40 years to spend your retirement worrying about quarterly valuation reports and Department of Labor audits. You built it to create a life.
It's interesting how we circle back to the definition of success. Is success keeping the name on the door exactly as it is, or is success securing the capital to fuel the next generation of your family?
And ensuring the business actually survives. I've seen ESOP companies collapse under the weight of the buyout debt. In those cases, the owner lost their legacy and the employees lost their jobs. A strategic sale might have changed the name on the door, but the factory would have stayed open.
That's the heavy truth. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for the business is to hand it to someone with the pockets deep enough to keep it growing, even if that person isn't currently on the payroll.
Exactly. Don't fall for the romance of the ESOP without looking at the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet doesn't care about your feelings, but it will dictate your future.
So for our listeners in Canton or anywhere else who are sitting there with a lease, a payroll, and a dream of retirement, what is the one question they should ask themselves before signing an ESOP engagement letter?
Ask yourself, if I sell this company tomorrow, do I want to wake up the next day as a retired person or as a creditor? If you want to be a creditor, if you want to stay involved and bet on your team, consider an ESOP. But if you want to be retired, consider other options like going to market.
Powerful advice. It's about being honest with what you actually want your life to look like, not just what you think it should look like.
100%. The gift trap is only a trap if you don't see the strings attached. Once you see the strings, it's just a business decision. Make sure it's the right one.
Well, there you have it. The golden handcuffs might look shiny, but they're still handcuffs. We've unpacked the tax myths, the valuation caps, and the reality of becoming your own bank. It's a lot to think about.
It is, but your life's work deserves that level of thought.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you for tearing down the curtain on this one. And to everyone listening, keep building, but plan your exit with your eyes wide open. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.